Hi everyone, I am still on my California, Alaska adventure. It has been now a month that I have left California and I am now back in the United States. I have just crossed the border a while ago and I am now in Montana on my way down to Glacier National Park, and today I'm going to find a campsite, preferably something on public land. I don't know how Montana is. We'll see what happens. This video will be basically about Montana and Wyoming. I am planning on seeing quite a few national parks, and as I am ahead of schedule, I am in no rush to get back to California, so I might spend a couple of extra nights camping here and there. We are only 5 miles away from Glacier National Park, and as I was approaching this area, I have noticed that there was no public land available to camp on. And I have said this in previous videos that I do not want to camp in a campsite, and I haven't done so for almost a week. So I started going around all these different campgrounds and asked them if they had a campsite far away from everybody else, and none of them had it. They're all just crowded RV campsites. And then this place was recommended to me, and I absolutely love it. We're actually spending 2 nights here. I am next to these teepees, so it's a pretty cool view. What they had done was to camp in a teepee would be $70, and they just charged me $40 for the actual lakeside camping, but they let me camp here. So this is actually pretty cool. Last night there was a couple here, so I even had some company, and they told me that sleeping in these teepees was actually not as cold as it looked like. It kind of looked cold because you're looking at the ground. It's not covered, and I don't know, it was actually cold last night, but they said it has a pretty good insulation, and it's pretty good for the wind. I mean, it's really well made. You could actually see that. So I'm pretty happy here. Let's go ahead and take a look at these teepees. They are actually made the way they were traditionally made back in the day, and as you can tell, they are so well made. Obviously, they can't tip over even in extreme weather, wind or snow or anything. And as you could see, that is what probably provides the insulation, that extra layer. And on the inside, it doesn't really seem that big, but you can actually put 2-3 people comfortably. Now the ground is uncovered, so I would bring a tarp, obviously, and a cot or mattress or something, so you're insulated from the ground. And as you could see, that top flap has to be open for the smoke to escape if you are making a fire inside, because yes, you could actually make a fire inside the tent and it will be nice and warm. And once your fire is out and you want to go to sleep and not be cold, then you just close out that flap. And I was told that even when the flap is open and your fire is going, the rain or the snow will not get inside. So this is a pretty cool experience. I would love to come back and actually camp in one of these. I don't think there would be that cold, obviously. Maybe bring a heater depending on when you're coming, but this is a pretty neat campsite, and it's right next to a lake, so the atmosphere and the ambiance is really, really neat. There are some gorgeous views, so I really love staying here, and this is why I'm spending 2 nights. This is Glacier National Park in Montana. I am only spending 1 day here, but I would definitely recommend to spend 2 or 3 days. It's so pretty. There are so many things to see, so many lake views and mountain views, and it is actually dog friendly. You can get out with your dog in many places. It was a little bit difficult for me because I had 3 dogs and that's just too many dogs to walk, but nevertheless, this is a beautiful place that I highly recommend. It looks like a storm is moving in. So on my way home to the campsite, that is my home for right now, I am actually pulling off the road in this really cool spot. I just wanted to feed the dogs and just let them run around for some time before it actually starts raining, and they are having a lot of fun, so this is pretty neat. And I just want to mention that I have not seen a sunset for about, I would say, 2 or 3 weeks by now. When I was coming down in Canada, I actually could have seen a sunset because the sun was setting a little bit earlier, like 10:30, 10 o'clock or so, but it was raining the whole time. So this is the first sunset I've seen in a long time, and it is just absolutely breathtaking. I mean, there's a storm and it's quickly moving, so the colors are changing so fast, and it's just amazing. Anywhere I look, I turn, these are different colors, and it's very dramatic. And I also even got some rainbows, and then some areas it's clear skies. It was a beautiful sunset, especially after 3 weeks, so this was pretty amazing. I have to say that out of my entire month so far, this place was one of my favorites to stay in. It was absolutely beautiful, and it was very peaceful. One of the reasons I liked it is because I was able to just camp far away from everyone, and my dogs were happy. I was happy. So this was a great memory of Montana. I loved it. But now it is time to move on. So the next stop will be Yellowstone National Park, which is about 380 miles from here. And I'm not sure if I'm going to drive that far today. I don't really have to hurry up. So I might drive only 250, 300 miles. The whole point is to find a place where I can camp, preferably on public land in a forest. And there's a national forest called Helena National Forest. I have absolutely no idea how it looks like or what's going on over there. So hopefully I can find something great along the way. We'll see what happens. But so far, everything has always worked out. Sometimes not so great, but it still worked out. So I'm pretty hopeful, and we are going to drive. We have all day to drive, no rush. And Glacier National Park was another plus. It was absolutely beautiful. So this was great. I am parked next to the sign of Yellowstone National Park. So this is actually the park boundary. And as you have seen in previous videos, finding a campsite was a little bit difficult again. I was just driving and driving. I was supposed to go through these forests and different areas where there would be these awesome campsites, and I don't know what happened to that. So I couldn't go any further because you definitely cannot camp just anywhere within a national park. So I pulled over right here. This is actually a pretty big area, and it's really nice. I mean, there's a river right here. The dogs can just run around pretty freely. Of course, I have to watch them, but I don't have to worry about them crossing the river. They don't go in the water or anything like that. So this is actually kind of okay. It's an acceptable place to stay, and we're going to spend the night, and then tomorrow we are going to explore Yellowstone National Park. And as of right now, I am still in Montana. Yellowstone National Park is amazing. It's definitely one of a kind, and I am coming back next summer for sure, because this needs more than just one day to explore it. As you're coming closer to the land, you start seeing all these geysers and all these steams coming out of the land. It is a little bit kind of scary because you see all these warning signs and all these limitations telling you that everything is boiling hot under the surface, and you have these restrictions that you cannot walk off the pathway, or you cannot even throw anything anywhere. I don't know why you would throw it, but you cannot take your pets to certain areas. So it is all for a good reason, because just imagine if you fell into this water or you stepped on the ground, and that ground can be very, very thin. Just imagine paper thin, and you step on it, it looks so stable, and then you fall in it, or your child falls in it, there will be third-degree burns for sure. But other than that, if you obey all the laws and all the rules, then you will enjoy it. It's really amazing. You have all this water, all this steam trying to come out of the land everywhere. You have these fountain paint pots. Basically, what this is mud or clay, all kinds of things. I think it's mostly mud, and it's just basically bubbling. It's boiling from the water underneath, and it's just a very different sight. And of course, you can't help it but notice this rotten egg smell, but it's actually not so bad. It's a little bit sweet. It's not really that strong. Like, it didn't really bother me. It was just different, you know. It comes with the park, and as you walk along, you see all these different areas. It's a huge park. It's also very educational. You see all these signs explaining everything. So you're not just looking at things, but you can actually learn about it. Of course, they have stores and museums and things where you can educate yourself further, and they have all these geysers. This is just really, really cool. There are other things to do in Yellowstone National Park. You can actually fish and get a special permit. I'm not really sure about the rules. I don't even know if it's catch and release or anything, but you can also view wildlife. There are a lot of warnings that you cannot mess with them and you cannot harass them or interfere with them, of course. I haven't really seen anything, but I know there are buffaloes and bear and deer and all kinds of other animals that you can just come and at least just view them. So this is definitely a huge park. It has an eastern side and a western side, and you can camp here. So what you want to do is plan maybe 3-4 days to stay here. It is pretty pet friendly. I mean, you could take your pet on a leash. There are a lot of places you cannot take them with you, so you have to leave them in your car or truck, but at the same time, you're not supposed to leave them unattended, so it can be a little bit tricky. But either way, it's still amazing to come, so don't miss it. If you have to bring your pet, have them in your car, roll the window down, try to make the best of it. And this was an amazing experience. It's beautiful, probably the most amazing national park I have seen so far. Grand Teton National Park is actually connected to Yellowstone National Park somehow, because you don't even realize when you leave one park and you're coming up to the next one. I mean, the only thing you see is these beautiful mountains, but you do not pay a separate entrance fee. You're just in the park, and it's much smaller. So coming from a huge national park to something like this, it is much smaller. Basically, it's all about the mountains. There are a few things to do here, but I just basically drove through it, and then I stopped and just took pictures and took a little break here and there and enjoyed the view because it's beautiful. But if you're into rock climbing and things like that and mountaineering, this is definitely a place for you. And then after this, there is a small town. It's called Jackson Hole in Wyoming. So we are in Wyoming now, and it's such a cool town. It has such a cool vibe. Honestly, I wished that I did not have my trailer with me and that I did not have all 3 of my dogs, maybe just one, and I could have just parked my truck and get out and just walk around on foot, trying to discover this little town. Today was a very interesting day. I woke up in Montana, went through Wyoming, and ended up in Idaho. I have never done anything like that before. So after I was finished with the Grand Teton National Park, I just kept driving, looking for a camping spot in the forest. I went through a couple of national forests, but it was pouring rain, so that made it a lot harder to see, and actually there weren't too many spots available. So I did what I always do. I kept going and going, and then of course it was farms and houses, and Before I knew it, I was in Idaho and on the 15th freeway, and I knew that I wouldn't find anything here, so I just looked for a rest stop. So that's where I am. And I would say this part of my journey was one of my favorite. Montana, Wyoming, I've seen some beautiful places, and I am actually very close to home now. I'm only about 820 miles away. So I will be home in 3 days, maybe even 2 days. I'm in no rush, but I also have nothing really planned to see. It's just more like driving and then camping. But if I have a hard time finding a camping spot tomorrow and I end up driving 400 miles, then the next day I will just push through and make it home. There's no reason to camp out like 100 miles from home. So this is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'm hoping the tips I provided about the national parks were helpful. And if you make this trip yourself, you will keep those in mind about the RVs and the dogs and things like that. So once again, thank you so much for watching.